Hi, this simple video is going to show you how you can make a beautiful advent calendar. This time we're going to make the calendar in the shape of a tree, and we're going to make the pockets in the shape of a heart. But you can in fact use this technique to make the pockets any shape you wish. This is a really simple technique, and the first thing that we're going to do is talk about how that design is going to come together. So what's going to happen when you come to sew the design is that you're going to have a shape which will be, in this case, a Christmas tree. And the Christmas tree will be traced out onto a piece of fabric, calico or homespun. You need to rule it up so that you know where you're going to position each of these embroidered applique pockets. You're going to embroider on just one layer to begin with, and the embroidery will be going to put down an applique fabric, trim it away, embroider the number, and then embroider a large buttonhole. That will happen on each one of these hearts. Then the next thing that you will do is, once you've embroidered the whole of the top, is you will slip a piece of fabric, you'll unhoop it, and now you're going to just be sewing. And so you will layer the tree with all of its embroideries onto a piece of fabric that will become the pockets. Then you'll have a piece of wadding, and then you'll have the backing piece of fabric. Now, just thinking about that, if you're going to bag it out, you can leave out the backing piece of fabric, and you're just going to then quilt through the embroidered piece, the pocket piece, and the wadding. And to embroider it, you're going to embroider it into a grid, so that every one of the appliques will be surrounded by a square of stitching. So you'll stitch in a grid, and each grid will surround the applique heart. That means that when you open up your buttonhole, you would make a little pocket in behind the embroidery. The final step for doing this, it would be to then place the backing fabric on the top, stitch around the outline, and then bag it through. So I hope that that makes sense to you, because knowing that, we've just simplified totally how we're going to treat the embroidery. So here we go, we're going to open 5D embroidery. And now we're going to come to the bottom of the screen. My birds are singing today. I think they can feel the change coming. We're going to come to the bottom of the screen and just click onto 5D Design Creator. And we'll start a new design with no picture. That's the last option you see on your list. Go next. And this time we're going to open in the drawer window. So we'll leave the first choice selected and go next. The hoop I've chosen to do this in is a tiny little hoop, which is 80 millimeters by 80 millimeters. In actual fact, you'll be resizing this embroidery to fit into however big the squares that you are going to grid your Christmas tree at. And so I'll leave it at that, but we'll resize the embroidery later. And we'll go finish. And right away we land in the drawer window, which is not a window that you might use very much, but it's going to give us a nice simple outline. On the right hand side of our window is a control panel, and in the middle of the window is this section called Create. We'll click onto our shapes, and we'll come across to this little arrow and come down our list until we locate the heart shape we want. Now, there are 3 heart shapes, and I think the easiest to work around will be shape number 18. I prefer to draw my shape starting at the top left corner and then left mouse clicking and dragging down towards the right. So I'll choose that option by clicking it. I will take my cursor over to one square grid inside of my works area, and I'll left mouse click and drag to the diagonal opposite. And there you see one heart. Now we'll come to our Create window, and the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a running stitch. that will just give us the outline of the area for our placement of our applique fabric. We're going to come and collect our running stitch. We'll need to make sure it's not too large, so I've created it at 1.5 millimeters. And I'll pick up my nodes. My first one will automatically create a jump stitch, and I'm going to start right here, holding to the control button and left mouse clicking to make a nice sharp node, and I'll just come around. I only need to place a few nodes, not too many, holding the control key at the bottom of the heart. Around we go. Too many nodes actually cause a real problem with trying to make the heart a smooth shape. Right mouse click when we get back to the beginning of the shape, and make sure that those two nodes are sitting directly one on top of the other. And you can see where you need to just drag those to edit that line just a little. Can you see me doing that now? Just a little bit there. And the same thing here, just editing it directly on to our picture. The smoother these lines are, the nicer our heart's going to be. So not too many nodes, and that's really too difficult to edit. Okay, so here's our nice smooth shape. Now let's come across to the edit window. You do that by coming to the left side of your screen and clicking on edit. Now right now I've just used a blue thread for that, but if you have gone onto the Michelle Aitken Designs website and printed off the free technique sheet for creating your applique commands, then you'll be able to change this now to your first command, and that's what I'm going to do. They're in my thread ranges, and they're my threads, and here we can see placement, tack down, and trim. So I'm just going to make that my placement command color and go OK. Now to save me drawing that again, I am going to copy that whole area. So if you come to the bottom left of your screen, it will allow you to select that area completely. Did you see that those blue nodes snapped around my heart? I'll do that again for you. So here we have it. Come down to the left bottom of your screen and just click on this last icon, and there is our selection box around it. Now we can copy it. You'll see it will appear down in the bottom right on our clipboard, and we'll paste it. You can see it's not lining up. If you left mouse click out of the area and then go undo, it will snap it one on top of the other. So in my film strip I can see I've got two running stitches and they are lined up directly one on top of each other. I need to insert a colour change here because I don't have one, and the colour change will force my machine to stop and allow me to do something. So I'll come and select onto the jump stitch, where I will right mouse click. I'll insert a colour change, and again using those unique colours that I have created, I'm going to use my tack down colour and go OK. So now my machine is going to stop, and not only is it going to stop, it's going to tell me what it's doing. It's going to be tack down. Okay. Still in my clipboard, so I can actually paste that one more time. So I'll paste. I'll left mouse click off the heart area and then hit undo. You can see it here in my film strip. So when I go undo, I haven't deleted it. It is still in fact there. Come to where my jump stitch is. Right mouse click. Insert a colour change. This time it will be my trim colour, and go OK. So we've got a running stitch, a running stitch, and a running stitch, but my machine also knows that it is called placement, tack down, and trim. Okay, I actually would like just one more thing here. Where it says trim, I would like to actually change that from a running stitch to a zigzag stitch. It's just going to hold it down neater for me to do my final stitching on. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to change that running stitch. I'll right mouse click and come to properties. The easiest way for me to create a zigzag stitch is to come down and take a satin line, open its density to 12, and have its width at about, let's say 2.5, and we'll go OK. If I come back to my Create window here on the left-hand side, I can now see that what I've created is the little zigzag stitch that I wanted to use. That's going to hold down that fabric nice and tight. Okay, what we've done is we've created the commands that will allow us to put down our applique fabric, stitch around the applique fabric, trim the applique fabric, and then sew the zigzag around it. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to satin stitch that area. Instead of drawing the heart again, we've still got it on our clipboard. Let's paste that one more time, left click out of that area, and then go undo. It's snapped on the top, and I imagine that we're going to have our hearts red, so I'm going to come onto my jump stitch, right mouse click, insert a colour change, and this time I'm just going to come back to my regular Robson Anton threads and choose a nice red and go OK. Again, I don't want a running stitch now, I want a satin stitch, so I'm going to select where that running stitch is on the left hand side on that film strip, right mouse click, go to properties. I'm going to turn it into a satin line. My tack down was 2.5, so I'm going to make this one 3 and leave my density at 4 and go OK. Let's have a look at what that looks like, and we can see that that looks pretty darn good. I just want to double check on this last one that I do in fact have that stop start nice on top of each other there. Okay, see now that's formed a nicer point. With all of the others it didn't matter too much, but it really does with this last one. And I'll just zoom back out. That job's done, it's looking nice and sweet. We can save that as a can by coming here and go Save As. And we'll call it, actually I'm just going to open a new folder for this one. Let's call it Advent Calendar, and we'll call this the Heart Pocket, and go Save. Now did you notice I didn't put in any tie-off stitches? That's because we're going to use Stitch Editor Plus to pop them in for us. Okay, we've saved it as a can, so we can come back and fix it if we've done anything wrong. I'll save it now as an embroidery. I'm going to call it the same thing and save it in the same place. Advent Calendar, Heart Pocket, Save. On the bottom part of your screen, you've got your 5D area, and you can just click here to come back to it. Let's open that heart now that we've created by finding it in our folders. So here's our My Designs, Advent Calendar, okay, and there's our heart. We can see it's quite nice and little there, and that's what we want. I can actually expand the size of my screen by changing the size of my hoop. And there he is there. So that's our pretty little outline of our heart, but of course we can't get into it at the moment and there's no number. So we've saved it as a VP3 file, so now every time I change it I'm going to give it a new number because we're going to have numbers 1 through to 25. So here's the heart. Now exactly the same technique when you do your star. So if you wanted to have stars all over it, then you could do stars all over it, and then the top star at the top of the tree, whichever you like. So here we go, and we're going to come across to our letters tab. This is where we're going to find our numbers. Now, I don't know whether you've already got in mind what kind of number you want to use, but you know that by coming down here to this arrow, we can actually preview the actual stitch by just coming down here. Do you see that? Now, it's going to need to be a reasonably small stitch because these little pockets need to be reasonably small. So I would suggest that you're looking for something around about a 15mm. And a 15mm is the smallest one on these ones. So I think I'd probably be inclined to maybe use that one. It's quite nice. So we'll use him, and we'll just go for number 1. So apply and let's see how that looks. Oh, see, that's quite yummy, isn't he? And he can just go here like this. You see, I'm going to line him up in the middle, and there's my number 1. Now I'm going to come to my motif tab. In my motif tab, I'm going to look for a buttonhole. I could have a really fancy one, or I could have a really plain one. I'd actually quite like a reasonably plain one, I think, but of course I can delete any section that I don't want. So let's just see what we've got, and that's what I'm just scrolling through at the moment to see what's here. They're all kind of nifty, but I think back here at number 2, this one here might be the best of them. Let's have a look at our options, and we're going to have to know what sort of size it needs to be. So I'm going to leave it on, let's go down to 25 millimeters and see how that looks and go okay, and then we'll apply it. Great. If we come back to design, we can actually turn that around and we can put it here. See, it's really too small, so let's get rid of that one, but come back to my motif and use the same buttonhole, but let's make it much bigger this time. I think we could go double that size. I think we'd go 50 millimeters and go okay and apply. Whoa, he's a big one now, isn't he? And come back to design, 90 degrees, and bring him into position. Now, the reason why it needs to be big is it needs to be big enough to actually fit something through it. So, I mean, you're trying to find something about the size of, you know, larger than a 50 cent piece. So if we come to real size, so this is the real size of it here, and that may actually still be too small. I'm going to do it one more time, and I'm going to have to edit out all the fancies. So let's go delete, and let's come back to motif. Just view it back up here. This one here might be easier for me to delete some of the stitches out of, so I'm going to change my mind to this buttonhole. Come to options. It's 50 millimeters at the moment. Let's go 60 and go OK, and then we'll go apply. Whoa, he is big, isn't he? Might be too big now. Come to design, 90 degrees. Let's see. Here it is a bit. We'll just come down a little. Motif, options, and go OK, apply, design, rotate, bring it into position. I think that will be a little bit better. Okay, now I'm going to come into my edit tab, and I want to take this little twirl out because it's really not necessary. So let's see which is which. So that's the buttonhole and that's the twirl. So if I turn off the buttonhole, I'm left only with the twirl. Let's select the twirl and go delete. And now I've just got my buttonhole. Come back to design, and that's where it's sitting. It looks not too bad, really. It's going to be quite strong. It's a strong buttonhole. We could have perhaps played with it a little bit in resize. Let's just see what we can do in terms of resizing it to its width. Let's just see if we can make the width 80%. We go apply. No, that's done the wrong thing. We'll undo, and we'll select it, and we'll go the height 80%. See if that's just made it a bit narrower for us. Now when we come to design, it's not as dominant. In fact, I'm going to undo that change, come back to edit, make dots invisible area, and I'm actually going to go to 70% and go apply. Now you see it's smaller, it's a bit more, you know, it kind of matches in with the rest of the heart. Okay, now I know that I've got enough room here where my number 1 is to change it. Each of my elements are in different colors so that I can change things in and out. I'm going to actually move the buttonhole just a little bit up. Okay, I would do that buttonhole in the same color as the fabric that I'm placing down. So it's most likely going to be red, for instance, on a green tree, or silver or something like that. So you want it to blend in. Okay, we're going to combine them all. We're going to color sort them all. And that is really the job done. We'll save that as a number 1. So we'll come into Advent Calendar and we'll go pocket 1 and go save. When we're back here again, so we've already saved number 1, we'd be able to undo our combine and color sort, so that with a little bit of luck, actually, doesn't really matter, because if we come into edit and turn off everything apart from the number, there he is, there's our number, make block from visible area and delete him, and then come back to letter, and we can put in the next number, which would be number 2. Apply, move it up. Can you see how you'll just keep on doing that? And obviously you would choose whichever pattern of number that you want to have happen, and each time you'll come back to design and you will save it. So you're going to do all of that nice and easily. It's quite simple. There's one final job that I haven't shown you, and that's using Stitch Editor Plus to add our trim commands. So we've got the embroidery. Let's come down to Stitch Editor Plus, which is in the bottom left hand side of your screen. When it opens, it's blank. We're going to come into our camera, and we'll just have to find that same design that we have saved, which is in My Designs, and it's my Advent calendar. And there he is there. Disregard what size hoop it opens up into. That's really not relevant until you're up to actually sizing it. But we will just select the whole object, and we'll come to modify, and this little wee symbol, insert tie stitch, when we click on that, it will actually insert tie stitches everywhere that it needed to be. You can see that you can now see those little blue symbols. We've got our design, we've just added our tie stitches to it. We're going to save it on top of what it was saved on before, so that we're not having duplicates of the same designs. We'll save, we'll go yes, and then we're going to come to organizer, and finally we might be able to just add our cut jump commands. Advent calendar. Sometimes these things are slower than you want them to be. It's just processing. Here it is. That's the one there that we want to add the trim commands to. So we'll just go trim commands. Make sure that you're putting it back in the same place, because as I say, it's very confusing if you end up with lots and lots of the same design. You won't know which one you're using and which ones you've updated. So we'll just make sure it's the same one. We'll go OK. Yes, it's the same one. And it's done. Now that's the one that we're going to use from now on, because it's got our tie stitches and our trim commands. Okay, let's just imagine that you have your Christmas tree outline, and your Christmas tree outline looks something like this. It might well have a baskety shape underneath here. What you will need to do is you will need to trace your shape onto your fabric, and then you're going to need to put in some lines. Just okay, so you're going to have to draw up some grid lines, say, you know, across here, and then another one underneath that, about here, and another one about here, another one sort of here. So you're going to grid up the whole Christmas tree, making sure that you have got enough little spaces to put in all of your hearts. So the whole thing will look something like this. I'm just doing it quickly, and of course you will do this much more carefully and mathematically perfect. So I'm going to draw it all up, something like that. Then, using your machine, you're going to embroider the applique that we have created, and that will mean, when I find a little heart, I can put it there. There's a heart. So a little heart would go, say, here. Okay, so we're going to do our little hearts all over the jolly place, so that we have hearts and hearts and hearts, all embroidered, all just on one layer of fabric, which is the top layer of fabric. It's your actual tree. You see, every little grid line will have a heart, and they'll just go on and on and on forever. Hearts everywhere. Of course, yours will all be the same size. I'm just doing this so that it's got a visual representation for you. You need to be able to fit in, as I said, 25 of these hearts, or they could be stars, or they could be squares. They could be whatever shape you want to do. Okay, so we've got them all done, and we'll do another one over here. You just have to imagine that there's 24 there. So you've embroidered them. You can even go ahead and you can cut the buttonhole. So each one of those has got a buttonhole, which you're going to cut there, and then you're going to cut this one. See that? You're going to cut all of them, and then you're going to put another layer of fabric behind and a layer of wadding behind, and using your regular machine then you're going to sew down these grid lines. And when you sew down the grid lines, not only are you quilting, but you're making the pockets as well. And the access to the pockets is through the little buttonhole that you've created. All you need to do then is pop the backing fabric on top of the whole sandwich, stitch around the outside, leaving the space to bag it out, and hey presto, you have yourself a beautiful advent calendar. How easy is that?